It's now 5:01 p.m. and this is your Kingston Town Meeting preview. And we're going to run through all of the articles that are going to be on the warrant for the annual town meeting on June 13th, 9 o'clock at the Kingston Intermediate School. And there'll be a key factor distributed and put on the website, as well as available for everybody to be able to review, that will lay out exactly what the expectations will be. PAC TV will be putting up an actual, they're going to do a video of the auditorium as well as the gymnasium of what people can expect when they arrive. We'll be doing social distancing and the entrances in regard to check-in, and then doing that. Just so everybody knows, just up front, any conscientious objectors will be put into the gymnasium. All non-voters will be put into the gymnasium. And then we will have any health-related people who are unable to wear a mask for health reasons. We'll also have another section in the gymnasium that is separated from other people, so that we can make sure that anyone who can't wear a mask for health reasons is still able to attend and able to participate. One of the things, just so everybody knows, that PAC TV mentioned was that they're going to have boom mics now, which is a great advantage, because then there won't be anything for anybody to worry about. And the boom mics pick up medical masks much better than they pick up the cloth masks. Cloth masks that are multi layers sometimes will sound muted. If you have a medical mask, and we'll have some available for you, then that will be, you'll be able to be heard on the boom mic much better, but that will allow for better sanitation in regard to and protection of anybody speaking at annual town meeting. So with that in mind, I'd like to defer to Chair of the Board of Selectmen, Josh Warren, in order to give us an opening remarks for the annual town meeting. Josh?
Janet, thank you. To Moderator Wallace and the staff at PAC TV, thank you for hosting this evening's town meeting forum, sorry. Town Administrator Coulter, department heads, commissioners, and members of the public watching at home, thank you for your participation and engagement. At the risk of repeating myself, I'd like to take this opportunity to say that we are currently in uncharted territory, not just for the town of Kingston, but also here in the Commonwealth. We acknowledge that COVID-19 has significantly impacted the lives of all those in our community, whether it be by the loss of livelihood, struggles at home, illness, or worse, the loss of a loved one. No one has been untouched by this virus. For the last 80 days, a team of elected officials and professional staff have worked tirelessly to ensure that residents, businesses, and employees would be supported through the continuity of basic services and operations. I see tonight's town meeting forum as a crucial part of that effort. In early March, the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee developed a consensus budget for fiscal year 21. Since then, funding for unrestricted state aid, which supports local government, Chapter 70 funding, which supports education, and local receipts have been undermined by COVID-19. The extent of the underfunding is still yet to be determined, but this has resulted in the need to create a new budget anticipating devastating $1.2 million in cuts to our revenue. This estimated reduction is based on guidance provided by the Massachusetts State Legislature and the Massachusetts Municipal Association. Typically, the following year's budget has long since been finished by now. As we speak, the school committee and our town administrator are in active negotiations with the teachers and employees unions. It is only through successful negotiations that we can avoid deep workforce reductions and a reduction in services. A follow-up forum on the fiscal year 21 budget and on the safety plan for town meeting will be held on Wednesday, June 10th at 1 o'clock p.m. Heading into such a challenging year, it's imperative that we come together as a community at town meeting to vote the budget, take care of standard but timely housekeeping items, and vote on shovel-ready projects that will generate new revenue to help us weather this storm. It's equally important that we complete the town's business in one day. Kingston's annual town meeting is scheduled for Saturday, June 13th at 9 o'clock a.m. It'll be held at the Kingston Intermediate School. The purpose of this forum is to give residents a closer look at what articles will appear in the warrant, so that as much information as possible is available before town meeting. It would be naive to think that this evening's forum will answer all of your questions. So we encourage you to use the time between now and Saturday, June 13th to contact those presenting the articles to find clarity where questions remain. In short, we hope that you will educate yourself on the items and issues contained in this warrant so that we may show up ready to vote. We recognize that some still have concerns about congregating for town meeting during this ongoing public health crisis. Kingston's appointed emergency management leader, Fire Chief Mark Douglas, is finalizing a plan with Moderator Wallace that will ensure the safety and well-being of all those who wish to attend this year's annual town meeting. Through social distancing, the use of face coverings, increased and continuous sanitation, of bathrooms, microphones, and all other areas of potential contamination, we're confident that Chief Douglas will provide us with as safe a meeting experience as possible. Additionally, the Board of Selectmen has reduced the size of the warrant by 19 articles in an effort to shorten the duration of town meeting. And Town Council has spoken with Moderator Wallace regarding ways in which to possibly combine articles in an effort to create greater efficiency, respect the time and the will of the voters, and to complete our town business in one day. Thank you, and I look forward to seeing you all on Saturday, June 13th at 9:00 a.m. And Janet, with that, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Josh. If I can, are you aware of whether or not all the presenters' emails are available on the Town of Kingston website, so people with questions can email them, the presenters?
No, that would be a great question for Gloria. If they're not, we can certainly put up some sort of crib sheet with the warrant. That's a great idea, and we'll make sure that folks have direct access to those presenting. And again, I mean, our hope really is, and I know you're in the same boat, let's try to answer our questions ahead of time. Let's show up with as much information as possible. And let's sit down at 9 a.m. on the 13th, ready to hold a town meeting and be ready to take our votes.
Great. Thank you, Joshua. Gloria, we were asking about whether or not email addresses of all the presenters can be placed on the website so that people with questions can email and hopefully have those answers answered prior to town meeting so we can somewhat delay questions that will be on the floor.
Absolutely, we can do that. Yeah, I think I have all of them that are on here. Most of them are town employees anyways. I have the information, so we'll do that.
Great. Thank you so much. I think that will help all the voters.
Yes.
So now moving on to Article 1, which is our annual reports. I guess I forgot I should go formal. Mr. Coulter, if you can talk to us about the annual reports. I'm assuming it's just entry into, and you'll have the book available at town meeting. I can hear you. Tom, we can't hear you. We can't hear you.
Sorry about that. Gloria often does that to me. I'm so sorry.
All right, so back to the beginning.
You're right. This is the annual book. It's a simple vote, but it's a very important vote. It includes the 2019 report from all elected officials, department heads, boards, and committees. So it's just asking town meeting to approve the book for 2019.
And will that book be available for citizens to pick up at the annual town meeting?
Yes, and they can pick it up in advance if they'd like. They're all printed in our office.
Okay. Is that, I just asking, I don't know, is that going to be downloaded at all on the website so people can read it online as well?
In fact, it is. That's a great question.
Yes.
And so is that, do they click onto the main website and find that?
They do on the main main
I think
page.
it's under the clerk.
Yes, that's a good point. I think it will be under the clerk's office.
All right, great. Thank you, Mr. Coulter. Moving on to Article 2, which is the supplemental FY 2020 operating budget. I will move on. Again, that's going to the Board of Selectmen and to Mr. Coulter.
Yes, thank you, Madam Moderator. Again, in this article, we're asking for the town to supplement the town's prior fiscal year, fiscal 20 budget in the amount of $2,700 to compensate the building inspector for his expanded management role of the planning department. So it was a role that was not anticipated in the budget. Jason, due to the increase in projects facing the planning board right now, has doubled his responsibilities, and this ask is $2,700 to compensate him for his work in fiscal 20 in the capital planning department.
And just throwing out a question on that, is that going to be just for this fiscal year stipend, or is this intended to be more of like an ongoing stipend?
It goes into fiscal 21, and you'll see that later on in the warrant.
Okay.
In the
Thank
budget.
So this is to compensate him for the past, for our prior, because again, this is what we do this article every year, and it's to take shortfalls from the prior year and put them into, get them paid before the end of the fiscal year.
That's correct.
And I should announce that has Board of Selectmen favorable 4-0-0 vote, and that has Finance Committee favorable vote 2-3-0.
And
Actually, I'm sorry, that's unfavorable, right?
could I add to that? That is coming from the revolving fund. It's not coming from general funds.
Thank you for that, Elaine.
Yes, it's a $2,700 transferred from the Inspector's Services Revolving Fund, and it will be allowed as allowance and stipend, which will go to our building inspector.
Right.
27, okay, great.
Thank you for that clarity.
And then now moving on to Article 3, which is the fiscal 2021 operating budget. And I'll ask for the chairman of the Board of Selectmen, Mr. Pike, if you can address that. And if I can ask you, Carl, as well, I had asked this before and I think you said yes, but I want to confirm it now. Normally, the Finance Committee does a kind of a state of the town. And I was going to ask you to actually do that in writing in advance. We would then post it onto the website so that we can avoid the time at town meeting, which we all want to know that we can move through this town meeting as efficiently as possible and have that ready for the citizens online.
I had already thought that due to the circumstances, I would not be putting together a very detailed plan. But yes, I can put together something that can go on the website.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Just again, for us to try to do efficiency at town meeting.
Absolutely agree.
If you can talk to us about the 2021 operating budget.
Madam
Well,
Moderator, may I make a comment?
Certainly.
Carl, I think it's, we're all interested in getting through town meeting as quickly as possible, but I think your comments are very much needed by the body due to the uniqueness of this budget year. So I would advise you to, through the moderator, take the time you need, because your explanation of what we've experienced over the past several months in particular, I think would be of great interest to the people who attend town meeting. Thank you, Madam Moderator.
and
Mr.
to,
Pike, now, if you can address that, obviously, this is what the preview is about, is if you can give us the state of the state, so to speak.
what I would be doing, and I haven't done much on it yet, is a very brief summary that I would estimate no more than 2 minutes. I'm one of the people that believes that this meeting needs to move along as rapidly as possible. So I will put together some kind of a summary that will give us some general information about the budget and where we as a finance committee see us at this time in the town. As far as the 2021 budget, that we're all working on, including the town administration people, my finance committee, department heads, etc. I'll just say a couple of brief things about where we started. Back in March, the finance committee had reviewed all of the town budgets. The town administration had been working with us so that we really did have a consensus town budget at about March 10th that I think we were all relatively happy with. To give you an idea of the magnitude of it, we were at a budget, and I'm just going to be talking the real expenditures. I'm excluding retirement of debt because there's a major decrease in what we have to pay on retirement of debt this year. I'm going to exclude non-town net metering because that's an accounting item that really doesn't impact anything. But we were at a number of approximately $46.7 million, and that compared with an FY 20 budget of about 45.1. So we had built into it an increase of over $1 million, 900 of which was from the schools. Both school committees, Silver Lake and the local schools, had voted their budgets, and they were coming in with a 3.5% overall increase of $879,000. The reason I specifically mention that, I think we've all heard and seen a lot about the $1.2 million that we believe needs to be taken out of that preliminary March budget. We've asked the schools between Silver Lake District and our local schools to reduce their budget by $600K. I want it to be noted that that $600K is approximately a 2.3% reduction of their approved budgets of $25.7 million. So it's not as daunting, in my opinion, as we sometimes led to believe when we see something on Facebook. what it does do, it takes them back closer to what they had for a budget for this current fiscal year. And yet it would still allow them to have almost a $300,000 increase, or about 1%. As far as the rest of the departments, we've worked to make reductions of another $600,000. That is a higher percentage. That comes out to, I believe, about closer to 3% reduction when we look at the other departments and the fringe benefits. And we have to remember that a big dollar amount in this town are the employee benefits, fringe benefits, specifically pension and medical insurance. And those two numbers, as anybody in finance will tell you, are generally pretty much fixed. So when you take that out of what the town has to work with when it comes to budget reductions, you really do have a limited amount. So we're looking to get to a final FY21 budget to be presented at town meeting of somewhere around $45.5 million for these expenditures. And that would compare with last year's of about 45.1. So we would be up 200 or 300K over a year. So that I think it's important that people understand that the March budget that we were all working on was not a very fat budget, in my opinion. And now we're reducing that by $1.2 million. I encourage people to understand that these are reductions that are being forced upon the town by the assumption that state aid will be reduced. Yes, that's a question mark, how much? But I think that if you go out, you'll find that the anticipation of state aid reductions goes as high as 20 or 25%. The state budget is approximately $40 billion a year. The revenue department for the state is estimating an $8 billion reduction in their revenue. That's about 20%. Yes, the state has a rainy day reserve fund that they can use some of that. We are anticipating this 15% reduction. Some towns are anticipating a lesser reduction. We believe it's always better to plan for a difficult situation and be ready to live with that. And if the reduction in state aid is less than 15%, I believe that the town administration, the Board of Selectmen, and the Finance Committee all will be joining together to say we're going to do a town meeting somewhere along the line to reassign some of that money, or most of that, any extra money that comes in, back to the schools, back to the departments. So that I really think that, that's about all I can say at the budget this time. The town is still working on coming up with final numbers. I have scheduled another finance committee meeting for next week, either Tuesday or Wednesday night, so that we can finalize the budget that will be going before the town meeting on the 13th. So I encourage anybody out there who wants to call me or email me and ask specific questions about the budget in general, about reductions we're trying to make, about why we believe it's a fair budget. I welcome those calls and those questions. I always hear and read about people wanting to reduce the budget, cut the budget. So then I'll say, well, where do you suggest we cut it? Do you want to eliminate 10 teachers? Do you want to eliminate a fireman? Do you want to eliminate a policeman? Do you want to mow the lawns once a month instead of weekly? Do you want to plow the roads in 15 hours instead of 8 hours? So we all need to recognize that bills have to be paid and services are provided that we believe are services that the town wants. Thank you.
Now, Mr. Pike, if you can, just, I'm going to hit a couple of questions here for you. I'm hoping to, solve some questions that might arise. In this analysis, then, if you're taking about a 15% reduction, assuming state aid will be reduced by that amount, and that's what this budget is covering, you indicated that if there was, in fact, we got additional funds from the state, how would that handle? How would that, you're saying that you could come back to a special, but how would that actually be handled in line items that would be contained in the budget?
I would anticipate that if it was significant enough, and 15%, to give you an order of magnitude, is $900,000 thereabouts. So if it came in at 12%, you're talking $100,000 difference. That would probably not worry too much about. If it comes in at $500,000 difference, then I would anticipate we would do a revised annual budget and bring that before town meeting to go forward. And that's where we would be working with the departments and the schools to, in effect, increase their revised budget numbers.
And on the, say there was a hypothetical 100,000 that you gave as the first example that came in, how would that be allocated? Is there any thought, or has there been any thought about that?
I haven't been involved in it, but number one, if it came in less than that, you really don't have to, if it say it came in 100,000 favorable, you really don't have to do anything. It just means that you have more revenue that will cover what you budgeted. And if you never did anything with it, at the end of the day, you should end up with an extra $100,000 of free cash to go towards capital equipment, school projects, or whatever.
Okay.
But I would welcome Tom or Elaine or anybody that would like to add to that, because they're really the experts and they have the final say on what would be done.
If I can call on Ms. Fury, I think I see you indicating.
Ed, I just want to add to the reduction of $1.2 million, like Carl said, 900,000 of it is state aid, but we're also looking at a reduction in local receipts. So that makes up the $1.2 million. As far as if we're fortunate enough that the reduction is less than 15%, then I think at that point it would be a collaboration of everybody involved. The general government side cut our budget. We shared the cut, 50% schools, 50% general government. So I would imagine that everybody would sit down and take it from there. I mean, off the top of my head, I would say that we would probably discuss whatever that extra revenue is, 50% to the schools, 50% to general government. But, that's all speculation. So, I mean, it would be a conversation. It wouldn't be done in a vacuum. So I think that's probably the best unknown we have, and the best answer I can give anyway.
Okay, thank you. And then I'll go to Mr. Coulter in a minute. I just wanted to question, just on the indication, what Carl had indicated about it being free cash. What is the authority to spend free cash? Is that only authorized through another town meeting, that the expenditure of that, or can that be expended in another manner? Elaine, if you want to cover that one first, and then we'll go to Mr. Coulter.
Yeah, as far as the free cash, it's always been a town meeting vote to spend free cash, but the recent act that the state has enacted to allow funding for July or if budgets aren't set by then, does give the administration authority to spend free cash to pay bills. But so to that, I don't know if that act would still be in effect, 3 or 4 months down the line. But my opinion would be that money would need to be allocated at town meeting.
Okay.
And the finance committee chairperson would say that too, that I personally would never want to see free cash spent except as authorized by town meeting.
Now, Mr. Coulter, and then I'll go back with another question. Mr. Coulter?
Just a quick point, Madam Moderator. I think by now people know that these budget reductions on the town side are going to significantly impact town services. So I think once these actions have been taken, we'll be waiting for feedback from our residents on what their priorities are. So if we're fortunate enough, and we all hope we are, that the reductions in state aid are not as significant as we're forecasting and as we're planning for, then if there's a surplus based upon those receipts, I think by then we will have heard from citizens what their priorities are. Almost every department on the town side is going to be impacted, and some very significantly. So as we hear back from our residents as to what those priorities are, the Finance Committee, the Board of Selectmen, the administration will take note of that, and the restoration of funds will be driven in large part by that feedback.
Thank you, Mr. Coulter. Now, one other question, just because I know it has been raised, is that if the actually is going to apply this two ways. If in fact the cuts from the state are greater than anticipated, then obviously that would also then reawaken having to vote a new revised budget, I'm assuming.
That's right. The governor has 9C powers, which elects the governor to make in-year reductions to the budget. For the 12 years I was in the legislature, that happened twice. Those reductions may or may not impact local aid. In both of those cases, they did. If in-year budget reductions, 9C cuts are made, the town is going to need to respond immediately so that it doesn't fall behind and build a bigger deficit. Those reductions, those changes, would have to respond to immediately. It's a very difficult time when the governor makes 9C cuts. In this case, it would not be a 9C cut. He would just be disclosing what the state aid is, and if it's less than what we anticipated, we have to go back to the drawing board immediately.
And has anybody, I'm assuming then that there's been clarity with town council that the town of Kingston can have a revised budget vote at a special town meeting?
Yes, we can.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted that because I know people were concerned that if we voted at this annual, that's it. So you're stuck in, as opposed to being able to revisit this should those state numbers come out. Because as we know, many towns, some are going to the 112, some are going to defer their town meetings until August or September. So that would allow us to come back, so to be, at the, to readdress if the needs arise. Okay. I have nothing further. Is there anything further that anybody wants to offer on the budget before I move on? I do want to point out that Ms. Fiore did point out local receipts is down, as we know, because our meals tax was really, all of those things that we have in that come into the town and other avenues or other revenues are also down because everybody's financially being hit. So that's taken into account in this budget. So thank you, Paul. Seeing no further action or nobody else wanting to discuss that, I'll move on to Article 4, which is the fiscal year 2021 Water Department Enterprise Fund Budget and Surplus. I had Mr. Koska addressing that, but I don't see him. So what I will do is I will just cover, ladies and gentlemen, this is the typical one that we deal with the budget for the Water Department. It's the regular operating budget. And it also is, it's been bundled, so to speak, as I'm calling them bundled, to include also their surplus, their projects with surplus revenue. Again, just to remind people that this is user fees and user funds, and that this is their annual budget. Right now, the total budget is $1,938,622, and the project for the expendability is the $300,000 is, wait a minute, I'm sorry, moving that, for the water tank painting. And that's pretty much an ongoing, they keep those water tanks up in order to help with the maintenance of that overall water tank. So again, that's not unusual. We've seen that for $300,000 of their surplus revenues to be used for their ongoing maintenance of their facilities and their needs. And anybody else want to offer anything under the Water Department? Okay, so we'll move right on then to Article 5, which is the fiscal year 2021 Wastewater Department Enterprise Fund Budget and Surplus. And on this one, I'll call on Ms. Fiore as the Sewer Commissioner.
Okay, basically, it's the same as the Water Department. It's our operating budget and the bundled surplus revenue motion to take care of aging infrastructure.
Okay. And from what it looks like, it's the cleaning, repair, biofilter, remediation, analysis, design, upgrades, and all of that. That is on your ongoing maintenance, I'm assuming, down at the plants.
Exactly. Just as an example, the collection system inspection, those are the pipes in the ground. They're getting upwards of 20 years old. So we're going to do a program and inspect them all, make sure that everything is fine and not have any issues. So it's that type of expenditures.
Okay. And that'll be great because we know that was a big problem in Plymouth where they left their infrastructure fall. And then there was, a lot of damage being done in the roads and everything that was happening. So maintaining those is really of utmost so that we don't delay that into the process for a later bigger issue.
Proactive and not reactive.
Right. Perfect worded. All right. So again, anything on that again is just an annual article that we address and it's for the enterprise fund. So those are all user costs. Article 6, well, there is some obviously that's paid from the town that is done. Article 6 is the elected officials compensation. Mr. Pike, as chairman of the finance committee, if you can address that.
This is merely the annual article where we get town meeting to authorize the stipends for the elected officials such as the moderator, the Board of Selectmen, the Board of Health, etc. And the second part of it is the Finance Committee recommends any salary increases for the 3 full-time elected officials, the collector, the treasurer, and the town clerk. This year, the Finance Committee has chosen to recommend 0 increases as part of the attempt to maintain the, low increase in the budgets across town, so that the article is only going to be funding the stipends for the elected officials, and there is no increase recommended for the 3 full-time elected officials.
So again, we're doing a status quo on the elected officials, both just the stipend ones as well as the actual payroll.
That's correct.
And I should have gone back. That's Board of Selectmen favorable 301 and Finance Committee favorable 311. And I missed my cue here, so I'm just going to go back, if I may, on Article 4 for the Water Department. In order to give that, again, that has a Finance Committee favorable 500. I don't have a Board of Selectmen vote, but I believe that will be coming out next week. And then on Article 6, again, that's a Finance Committee, that's the water treatment centers or the wastewater. And that again has a Finance Committee vote favorable 500 and no vote from the Board of Selectmen as of yet. I believe, as you said, you'll be finalizing those in the votes next week. So now moving on then to Article 7, and this is the wage and personnel bylaw amendments and compensation schedule. And we have our wage and personnel committee member here, Lorraine Bergio. So Lorraine, if you can now address this article.
Thank you, Janet. The first item in the article is to add some new positions. Some of them are transfers of existing positions. Some of the recommended changes are to classify positions as exempt, where they were not classified as exempt before. But the new positions are assistant conservation agent. The assistant to the fire chief was moved, or well, we're recommending she be moved to wage and personnel from the union. Another new one is a program intervention facilitator for the Park and Rec. This individual would be responsible for bridging an IEP plan student in the normal course of school into a summer program. This person would have a skill set in this area. So the person I think that might do best would be somebody that would have some experience, but that's a new position because they do have a lot of kids that come to the summer programs with IEP plans and some, special challenges. So this person will be helpful here. We've changed the position title of administrative assistant full-time to administrative assistant without that FTA designations to allow for it to be either part-time or full-time. The position of animal control officer These are the ones that we exempted or inserted the exempt. With the animal control officer, the assistant director of elderly affairs, community outreach coordinator, harbor master shellfish, head of teen services and emerging tech. Now that was a 3-0 vote. So I don't anticipate any specific problems. Does anybody have a question on that one? Oh, none heard.
I actually do, if we can just jump back. I'm assuming then that the assistant fire chief, that's been supported to move her from.
Yes, he was the one that submitted the request, Janet. He submitted a written request. So we have his full support and knowledge.
Okay. And then the facilitator for park and recreation. Can you tell us what that's being budgeted for? The sum?
I do not know what that is being budgeted for, but we did, where is my thingamajig? We did the reclassification the classification on that.
Okay.
I apologize for not having it at the ready.
No, that's fine. I was just wondering whether or not, because we do have special ed and that comes in on a different, and where this involves children with under IEPs and going into the summer, a lot of these children are covered 24/7 or in regard.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I understand that.
Madam Moderator, for you, if I could speak on behalf of that.
Oh,
Yes.
there you go, Susan.
Hi, Lorraine.
Hi,
Thank you.
sorry.
This position would be funded through the recreation revolving account as part of the summer programming funds that come in for that program. And I do want to just clarify with regard to the IEP. So the individual wouldn't necessarily be certified in working and managing with IEP students, and previously it's a combination of children that could be on an IEP plan, or even just children that have some behavioral challenges or different challenges in social settings. So there's a lot of different things that are out there in today's world. And so it's just an opportunity for us to provide two things. One is support person, not only for the kids, but also for our staff, because a lot of our young staff may not have experience. So it will provide them an opportunity to educate them as well, and I give them different tools and resources on how to best help these children be successful in the program. So I do want to just clarify that it's specifically related to IEP, and there's not that connection, but a lot of the children, as Lorraine mentioned, could be on an IEP in the program or in the school system, and they do come to our program with different resources that might be needed. So it's not a severe one-to-one. It's a combination of staff training and support, and also the children's support. We created a Zen-Den last year, so it's kind of like a break space. So those kinds of things that we would offer for the children that come if needed.
Okay, great. Thank you. And I wanted to say, so that you indicated that was being 100% funded from the rec revolving account?
Correct. That would come out of the revolving fund where we receive the fees for that program.
Okay, great. Thank you. Back to you, Ms. Burgio.
Yeah, thank you, Sue, for clarifying that. I misspoke, and that was my fault. The next article is to increase the positions of clerk general, clerk special town committees. This one always gets me. Clerk special town committees not otherwise specified. Election officer, groundskeeper, and supervisor assistant after school program. What we are doing here is recommending that the wages be raised from $12 to $12.75, which is the state's minimum wage effective January of this year. Historically, the town has supported the change, and we're recommending the change again. Do we have any questions on that?
None.
Okay, just a piece of information. The people that would be impacted by this, the cost, according to Carol McCoy, the cost to do this is going to be less than $1,000 in total, because the people that generally receive the minimum wage are the ones that don't work full-time day. They're very specific. And then the next one is to increase to minimum wage the position of park attendant, senior counselor, instructor, and to add the new position, which is the program intervention facilitator we have in section A, to a minimum of 1587. That's where the classification had this person. The range for the program intervention facilitator came in 1587 minimum, maximum 1899 an hour. So we're going with that range there. And again, 300. Any questions? No, none heard. Great. In the next one, section 6, we've modified it to remove a reference to step increases, as step increases are not mentioned in the section it's referring to. So this is a housekeeping article within the bylaw. It's to correct an oversight. Any questions? No. Wage and personnel. Okay, we are asking that the time right now that you have to file information to us is 130 days. What we're asking in this article here is that the supporting documentation and final version of the request be submitted at that point in time, because we found this year there were a lot of drafts swinging around, and I know that sometimes it's not possible. But we're going to put this in the bylaw, or we're looking to put this in the bylaw, that when you do come in, don't give us a draft, don't give us an outline, give us what you want. You know, and I think that's a fair request so that we can start work immediately on that. Any questions?
Yes, what do you mean by that? So who's submitting the request?
Well, we're submitting the recommendation that it's changed. This would be any person, any department head.
That would be an employee or a department head?
Oh, yeah. It would be somebody responsible for seeking the work of our board, which is, you know, classification, compensation. So if somebody had a position that they wanted added, program intervention facilitator, perfectly, Park and Rec submitted the request to us and had the information on what this person would be doing. We met, so it was all pretty concise and clean. So
And
we were.
are you also changing the date, the time? You said something about the 130 days.
No, it's still 130 days.
Okay.
All right. I said, I think that was the last year change because the other one was too short.
Okay.
And what we were running into is conflicts with the FinCom and us, and you know, that's it was kind of, you know, difficult. So we're trying to get things as clean and concise as possible, get them to us in the condition you want us to review them. And that will allow us not to spend 3 meetings reviewing the same position that keeps being drafted. And these things do happen. So it's just a way to try to avoid that. Any questions?
Nope.
Okay, thank you. The next one is, it's a tuition related article. And what we're recommending is that the request came in, and to change it from 3,000 to 2,000 reimbursement eligibility annually, and requiring a grade of B or better to be eligible for that reimbursement, not C or better. We're raising the bar a little, and it's pretty standard from what I understand. Excuse me, I apologize. What I understand, it's not out of the ordinary to have a cap and a grade guide. Can be as fair. I mean, the town is expending this money to educate you, so it makes sense to me.
You say that you're seeking to reduce it from 3,000 to 2,000?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and to raise the passing grade from C to B.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah. Any questions?
Nope.
Okay, wonderful. This is a one where we spent a lot of time talking about it and looking at it, and what it does is we were asked if there was a way to switch all the employees so that everybody got their step raises on the same day. It would be a break for the town accountant, it would be a break for Carol. So we looked at doing it all at once, and then we looked at it using an attrition method. And basically, the numbers that we got back from Carol were, if we were to do it by moving everybody suddenly, it would cost the town about $28,000 to do that. Whereas if we used an attrition method, and there are a handful of people that this applies to, okay? No, that's not right. Strike that.
Well, Lorraine, if you can cover kind of what it would be. So are you going to request, what are you requesting in the article?
We're requesting that anybody that starts from July 1st of this year as a new employee they get their step raises July 1st. Anybody that takes a transfer, gets a classification, reclassification, or lateral transfer, anything, any movement of an employee would put them on that July 1 cycle.
So if an employee is not eligible as of July 1, say their attrition isn't until October, they then wait until the following July?
No. Okay, everybody stays the same. But a change in their employment status would trigger their movement to a July 1
Okay,
step raise date.
Okay.
We don't have a lot of people, I understand that would be affected by that because a lot of the people that are on board now already have a July 1 date.
Okay.
So it's a small pool of people we need to get into that July. And we figured, you know, we're saving $28,000, which is a nice thing to do right now. And it's not as offensive to people as being just arbitrarily changed.
okay, thanks. Now your next item?
Next item is, let's see, we're suspending the step raises. We're recommending that they suspend the step raises for fiscal 2021. And that no employee under wage and personnel be awarded a step increase. And at the same time, we are not recommending any cost of living. So, I mean, we don't have to recommend no, we just don't have a recommendation. And by not approving, as a matter of fact, we had initially tried, but then things went down and the environment changed. So we came back and amended our votes, but we are not recommending another one. So if we don't issue COLA, 2% COLA, let's say, according to Carol, that would save the town about $37,093 by not giving a 2% COLA. By no step increases, full wage and personnel only, it saves the town $66,177. So by no COLA and no step increases, we've saved the town about $103,270. Any questions?
Nope.
Okay, last one. This one is the procurement remuneration, and it passed our board with a 2-1-0 vote. All the rest were unanimous. Now this one is procurement responsibilities are getting more and more complex. We were approached and asked if we would consider a stipend or a remuneration for people that did this. So it's short of hiring a chief procurement officer for the town, which conservatively would be like 60, 70,000. And that's conservative. What they're asking is that we allow $3,000 remuneration for people who, and there are specific conditions. The first is you'd have to successfully complete all the training, and correct me if I'm wrong, Tom, but I think it takes them 3 classes. And they're not just classes, they're days of classes. So you might have 5 days of Unit 1, 4 days of Unit 2. So they'd have to successfully complete that. They also have to receive an associate MCPPO certification. So they're not going to just give this to somebody because they're, you know, doing some record keeping. They have to be qualified. They have to pass a test. They have to work in an office with procurement responsibilities. And if procurement is in their job description, they don't get the stipend. And we've frozen that for fiscal 2021. Right now, again, Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe there's one person that would be eligible to receive that stipend. And there's one person who is in the process of training. And the town's got a lot of stuff coming down the pike. And you know, again, procurement regulations and rules are stringent, so it is time consuming. So we're asking for the 3,000, not for this year, but you know, for next year. Any questions?
No, thank you so much, Ms. Bergio. I appreciate your summary on that. And anybody else have any questions of wage and personnel? And thank you for giving us the votes on all of those articles.
All right.
If I may, Madam Moderator,
Yes, Mr. Colton.
I just want to be clear, and I think Lorraine was, but for the people who are listening this evening, creating a position is different than funding a position.
Mhm.
So in this budget year, I think I heard only one position, I believe, that of all those that have been created, that are actually being funded this year. Is that correct, Lorraine?
Yes, I
Which is
believe,
At the Recreation Department?
huh?
Is
Yeah,
it
the program intervention facilitator.
So the rest of them are off budget, they're not funded this year?
They are not being funded this year. There is nothing. We're not recommending anything except minimum wage adjustment. And like, personally, I just don't see anybody having an objection to that, but it's entirely possible. But I think it's a fair, we listened to the Board of Selectmen, we listened to the Finance Committee, both said very clearly, numbers are not sustainable. And then COVID hit and boom, boom, boom. And it's the responsible thing, I think, to do and reasonable. And I hope that people are okay with it.
Great. Thank you so much for that summary. Moving
Madam
on.
Moderator, if I could, sorry,
Yep,
just Susan,
go ahead.
just I know Tom reiterated that, but with that position, again, I just want to clarify that that is not directly related to the operating budget. So it's
Right.
only
It's from the
funded,
revolving fund.
right, it's only funded if the programming moves forward in that capacity and the resources are available to support that. So I just wanted to make sure people were aware
Oh,
of it.
thank you. Thank you very much. So I appreciate it because it is important. So basically, you've got a 0 request from wage and personnel. Sort of,
Thank you.
but thank you.
Moving on to Article 8, which is the fiscal 2021 capital equipment project funding. If we can have a run through each one of these. Project number 1, which is the streets, trees and parks, $35,500 to pay for the third full year of a 5-year lease that purchased the Volvo front end loader. So we addressed this last year as well. This has Board of Selectmen 400, Finance Committee 500, and Capital Planning 500. Mr. Coulter, anything additional to add to that? Tom, again, can't hear you. You're muted.
Sorry.
I'm so sorry about that. I wonder if we could combine those first 3 projects.
Yeah, I
Those
can
are,
read all 3 because they're basically just
Okay.
paying the leases that were
That's all it
previously
is.
voted. And so in a way, we're under a lease, we have to vote them. So, but I'll read all 3 then. That's
Well
kind of what
said.
I wanted to do. So that works out great. Project number 2 is $19,500 to pay for the second year of a 5-year lease for the purchase of the backhoe. Again, that's streets, trees, and parks. That has Board of Selectmen 400, Finance Committee 500, and Capital Planning 500. The third project is $25,000 to pay for the second full year of a 3-year lease for the purchase of a Ford F-150 Fire Command vehicle. And that is for the fire department. And that has Board of Selectmen 400, Finance Committee 500, and Capital Planning 500. So those 3 all bundled together. Mr. Coulter?
That's correct.
Okay, so anything to add other than we're just completing the lease agreements?
I think you said it all. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. Moving on to project number 4. This is to $122,000 to purchase 2 Ford SUV patrol cars for the police department. And this has a Board of Selectmen favorable 400, Finance Committee unfavorable 230, Capital Planning is favorable 320. Mr. Coulter? Oh, actually, patrol car, I'm sorry, Chief Splain? On to you.
This is just a reoccurring expense. We've worked out with Capital and the FinCom the last few years that they should be replaced on a regular cycle. We decided that we could do 2 vehicles per year. In the past, some years we did 1, some years we had to make it up and did 3 per year for multiple years. And, it makes it much easier to plan replacements if we know what the plan is. So, that's basically what it is.
And would, Chief, would this also be, can you tell us, would you be taking 2 cruisers or 2 patrol cars out of service to bring these 2 in? River?
Yes. So what has happened is that the server that we have right now was not configured for townwide. It was configured for the townhouse only. And we have since opened it up for townwide so that everybody can save their documents on that, and then it backs up and we can restore down to one document or a whole file, or it's full. It's full because it was not configured for townwide. So this is why the new server.
And so the new server can't be, just again, a question for the public, a new
Okay.
server, the prior server can't be upgraded. Are you upgrading it or buying a whole new server?
Oh, no, we're buying a whole new server. It cannot be upgraded.
The current one can't be upgraded.
Correct. Yes,
All right. Thank you, Ms. Grossman, appreciate that.
you're welcome.
Moving on to project 8, it's $14,211 to purchase replacement computers and software at the library. Again, that's the IT. That has Board of Selectmen favorable 310, Finance Committee unfavorable 140, and Capital Planning Committee unfavorable 040. Ms. Grossman, can you address that one as well?
Yes, I can. So the library had been on a schedule for every 3 years to start replacing computers, but because the funding had been abolished, we now have to replace the computers that are now 6 years old and failing.
And are these the computers that are used by the employees and staff, or is this the computers used for the public?
It's only for the staff computers.
Ms. Stewart, I know you're on, so would you like to address that any further as well?
Sure. There are 2 other components to this request. Part of the funding is to replace 2 UPS machines that are also at the end of life, and 2 desktop printers that are also at the end of life.
And then the software? Is that just going, because you're replacing the hardware, you replace the software?
It's just part of it, yeah.
Just wanted to see if it was any other type of change. Article 9, I'm sorry, did Ms. Stewart or Ms. Grossman want to offer anything else?
So there isn't any software other than the operating system that comes with the computer that needs to be replaced. Everything else has been prior purchased, like the office suite. We already have that in place. So really, there's no software involved.
And would these computers at the library then be tied into, if project number 7 is voted, into the townwide server?
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
All right, thank you. Moving on then to project 9, which is $37,000 to remove poles and light system at the Lutz Field and remove and replace at the basketball court. And this is under recreation. This has the Board of Selectmen favorable 400, the Finance Committee unfavorable 230, Capital Planning favorable 400. And on this one, Ms. Woodworth, if you can explain this, and please tell for those people who don't know where the Lutz Field is and which basketball court.
Sure. So the Lutz Field is one of the fields that actually has been in town the longest. It's behind the Reed Community Building on that location property. And then the basketball court is the same. It's the basketball court that's at the Reed Community Building property. And this actually became an issue last year. A portion of one of the light fixtures on top of the pole of the Lutz Field actually fell. We contacted an electrical vendor that we work with regarding replacing the light. And he indicated that prior to replacing a fixture, that we have a company evaluate the condition of the poles, as they've been up for a very long time, and at least minimum of 21 years, because that's how long I've been there. So much probably longer than that. As he was concerned, there could be a concern of decay in the poles, and some of the poles in strong wind, we noticed that they do seem to sway quite greatly. So he was concerned about replacing that without having that. We did have a construction company contacted, and they evaluated the poles, and they strongly suggest that the poles be replaced due to the fact that the poles aren't currently in the ground the right distance. Just over time, they're not in the right depth, and there's also some concerns of some serious decaying conditions in those light poles. So the poles are actually old telephone poles that they were installed whenever that took place. They also looked at the poles at the basketball court and indicated the same thing. Again, not sure as to when those poles were originally installed, but again, it's been at least 21 years, if not longer. And same concern there. So the cost to remove and replace the whole entire system was the original plan. That cost would have been over $102,000. So the Recreation Commission reevaluated and looked at that particular property on the Lutz Field and decided not to replace the lights there, but are very concerned about removing those poles and want to remove those poles due to the safety concern of that. Same thing on the basketball court, they're very concerned about the safety issue with that. So therefore they wanted to remove those as well and then replace those particular lights. There's 2 actually poles in the light system there. They would be replaced in a more energy efficient manner as well. So that will help the town in the long run. So that particular cost for all of that came to the $37,000 that we're requesting in light of the current condition that we're in, instead of $102,000 for the actually replacement of that particular poles.
Thank you. So what you're proposing is to remove the poles and the lighting that's in the field and remove and replace it at the basketball court only.
Correct.
Can you tell how often, other than COVID-19 situation, how often are the basketball courts used at night and all of that?
All the time. We have them on a timer right now, or when we can. So normally they're on a timer until 9 o'clock because we have community residents that live right near the property. So they are used daily. Every single day there's people down there. We have 4 basketball courts in town, and all of them are used. And it's a very local one, as you know, with the Reed Community Building. So it's used quite extensively by our community.
Okay, great. Thank you. So you're doing some cost saving benefits as you can to not light the field, but to light the basketball courts that you're indicating are used quite frequently. All right.
Correct.
Thank you. Moving on to project 10, that would be $33,196 for the interior building entrance and walkway. This is at the library. This has a Board of Selectmen vote positive 400, Finance Committee unfavorable 140, and Capital Planning Committee unfavorable 040. So I see that Ms. Stewart, you're here. Can you address what this is in regard to?
Absolutely. This is a group of projects, and I want to give you just a little background before I describe each of the projects. So the library building was erected in 1971, and it was remodeled to be a library in 1994. By now, most of the furnishings and finishes are about 25 years old, or maybe it's even longer since I wrote this originally. In 2017, we were charged with making the best use of this building. And since then, we've also been put in charge of the Adams Center. And until we had to close in March because of COVID, we were increasingly using it for programs and meetings, and the community was using it as well. In 2018, the town voted to appropriate funds for a redesign of the library building. But since it's very clear that this is not the time for a project of that scope, we're prioritizing smaller projects to improve the functionality and appearance of the existing building. So these requests are for the purpose of keeping the buildings serviceable while maintaining the town's investment in them. We do believe we have an obligation to our citizens of all ages to provide a functional space for them to learn and build community. So to the specific, that's right. And I do want to make it clear that funding for this project comes from existing funding that was voted in 2018, Article 40 at annual town meeting 2018. So it's not new funds, it's already existing funding. So the specifics are, there's a small expansion of the IT closet in the director's office, and this is because that closet was originally built in 1994 when there wasn't as much equipment as there now needs to be. The next part is painting the interior of the building. So parts of the building have been repainted over the years, but most of the walls haven't been touched for at least 20 years.
Sia, not to cut in on you, but can you give us the cost analysis on each of the projects as you
Sure.
identify them?
Sure.
Thank you.
The IT closet expansion is 3,820. Interior painting is 11,970. The next one is a project in the children's room to create a playroom in what has been an activities room. This project is to install a large window in the interior wall and related electrical and painting work. So 2 years ago, we created a room for teens, and that investment has paid off very well, with teens using the room for studying and learning and socializing. And we hold programs in that room. In FY21, we want to focus on updating the children's room, so children and families have the kind of attractive and useful space they deserve. The window is partly a safety.
What is the cost on the children's program, on the children's room?
Oh, sorry, that's $4,000.
Thank you.
The window is partly for safety and so that we can see into the room and monitor the room for safety. We're also planning to do updates to the rest of the children's room, but those efforts are paid for by the Kingston Public Library Foundation, not by town funds. I do want to say here that, and we've applied for a federal grant to help with that project as well. We did take advantage of the building being closed to install the window, and so $1,950 of this project has already been spent, but not from capital funds. We were able to use facilities funds for that part of the project, but everything else still needs to be done.
So is those funds part of your 33,196 or those?
They are, yep.
So those funds were available in facilities, and it won't now come out of, you're looking for it not to come out of facilities?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Um,
Now, you also mentioned, are there other projects? Because also in the article, it talks about entrance and walkways.
Yeah, let me just keep going down the list. There's also another project in the children's room. This is something that was called to our attention and recommended to be done when we had Alice training this past fall. It is to install an emergency exit plus exit signs and related painting and electrical work, and that's a cost of $7,000. So again, this is a project for public safety. We're able to do it fairly inexpensively because there is an existing opening in the wall. So we're just going to replace what is now a window with an emergency exit. Next, there is a project in the courtyard to add furnishings, 2 umbrella tables and 8.
Whoever's on mic with that feedback, if somebody can cut their, actually everybody's muted but you, so it might be just you, Sia.
Okay, I'm almost through.
Okay.
To add 2 tables and 8 chairs to the courtyard, and this is a cost of $2,606. I'm sure you know that the library courtyard is a much loved feature of the building, so this request is to add seating to the courtyard to make it easier for residents to use the space. The next part is signage. We have been moving things around in the building to make better use of the building, and so the current signage doesn't reflect where things actually are anymore. So we need to update the signage so that so it's clear how to get around the building. Some of that signage has to comply with the Americans with Disabilities Act. And the final thing is
What does the signage cost?
the signage cost is $3,000. Sorry, keep forgetting to do that.
That's all right.
And the final piece is to install a window in the emergency door at the Summer Street side of the building. And this is for a better visual connection to the Adams Center, because when we're using both buildings, there is no visual connection between the buildings at all. And in order to even see the building, we have to go outside and around the library building. So this is both for safety and for better communication between the buildings. And those are all of the
And
projects.
the cost for that last project?
Is $800.
Thank you, Ms. Stewart. I appreciate the summary on that. Now moving on to project 11, $30,000 to replace and repair of the docks, floats, and gangways. That's a harbor master department. That has Board of Selectmen positive 400, Finance Committee positive 500, Capital Planning positive 400. I guess I should be saying favorable on that. So again, I believe on that project, I didn't have anyone. Mr. Coulter, do you have anything you want to add?
Are we on number 11?
No,
Number 11, right?
Yes, I think Bob Cosker is now on.
no, you're talking about the wrong one.
Oh, pardon me?
No, project 11 under the capital plan.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Elaine, I think you may want to speak to that.
That's being paid out of the Waterways Improvement Fund. And it's replacing, as it says, docks, floats for the Ardina that are well over 10 years old.
So that fund isn't going to come from capital planning, it's going to come from the waterways fund?
Yes,
Is that what you're
correct.
saying? Okay, so is that in the, I just didn't see that in the, yep, I see it. So
Yeah,
it's under the waterways improvement fund.
right.
So those funds are basically designated specifically for the harbor or the
Right.
Ardina. All right, thank you so much. Now, Mr. Pike, can you address what we had was the Board of Finance Committee? I now think I probably should have done it a different way. But under the Finance Committee had voted unfavorable on Project 4, which was the patrol cars. Can you talk to us about that?
I'm probably not the best one to talk about these unfavorable votes because I personally voted in favor of all of them. However,
However,
I
you are
can-
the chairman of the Finance Committee.
I can tell you, yes, that two of our members on the Finance Committee believe that this was perhaps a year when we should consider purchasing one patrol car instead of two. I explained that I was on the Capital Planning Committee last year when I was pretty aggressive in studying the mileage on the automobiles, the condition they're in, and tried to commit that we really do need to be purchasing two a year. And I did one other thing I would like to mention on this. I saw a comment on Facebook today about leasing cars. Leasing cars, okay, might seem like a good deal the first year, but if you lease two cars every year for, say, 3 years, then at the end of the third year, you're paying triple what you would have in the first place because you've deferred, some of the payments. On number 6, the 2 recycling cans for the transfer station, the same thing. 2 members want to have the transfer station manager consider saving half the money and buying 1 unit instead of 2. I think that's pretty insignificant when you're talking 17.5 in total. Number 8, the replacement computers and software at the library. I think it was just a case of the other members feeling that this should not be a priority item in a difficult year. $37,000 to remove poles and light system. I believe that 3 members, again, just felt that this was something that they were willing to try to push down the road for another year to save the money. The interior building improvements for the library, that's one that I feel pretty strongly about. The fact that that money is coming from leftover funds on a project that was approved by town meeting to do some work involving the library, it seems to me just sensible to take that money and reinvest it in the library in things that really need to be done. Again, other members felt that they would rather see the money held in abeyance until somewhere down the road.
Thank you, Mr. Pike. Just for the edification of everybody listening, what I will be doing under my moderator's discretion is on this particular article, I'll be bundling 1, 2, and 3 projects that are the lease payments. So those will all be voted as once. We're under contract with as the town of Kingston to continue those leases. I will then bundle 5, 7, and 11. Those are the 3 that have been voted positive by all committees involved, so Board of Selectmen, Finance Committee, and Capital Planning. Then we will vote separately on projects 4, 6, 8, 9, and 10. And again, ladies and gentlemen, I know that this will be one that will be debated. Not that we're not going to have a debate on the operating budget, but wanted to let everybody know that my key thing will be that presenters will have 4 minutes to present. Speakers will have 2 minutes to speak. There'll be no second up the mic. So I'm asking people to be succinct. It's a time when we have to watch how long this meeting is for the safety of all people who are attending. As we know, the length of the meeting impacts the potential negative impact overall of all the citizens attending. So I'm trying to ask that the citizens really consider just being succinct. And then we can continue to move on. Moving on now, if Mr. Coulter doesn't object, I'm going to say.
Madam Moderator, could I just ask one more thing? Could I just interject just with regard to the Finance Committee's comments on the Lutz Pole Project 9? I just did want to reiterate that we, obviously with the Recreation Department and Recreation Commission, we're very concerned with the budget and fiscal responsibility, and we've always done that. So we definitely would not be pushing this project forward if we didn't. Again, I do want to reiterate, we are very concerned that it's a safety concern. And if you're down there, when there's any high winds going, those poles move. So it is a safety concern, and pushing it off a year in times of, fiscal issues and things of that nature, I would definitely understand that, but we are concerned that it is a serious safety issue. So I do want to let the general public know that is the reason that we continue to move it forward.
Thank you, Ms. Woodworth. I think you were clear too on that the poles aren't in the ground as far as they should be for normal safety that was done, as well as the fact that in this time of COVID-19, we're going to have a lot of children out in public parks and areas because there's less congregating inside buildings and doing things. So I understand what you're talking about on that. Article 9, and again, I was just indicating with the acceptance by Mr. Coulter, I'm just going to run through these next 2. Article 9 is our revolving funds. This was when we set up the rec program, inspection services, senior center programs, Adams Center programs, conservation funds, and the Wetland Protection Act, which is the one I believe we added last year at annual town meeting. So all of these are favorable action unanimously by Board of Selectmen and Finance Committee. And again, this is just the reoccurring vote that happens every year that we have to revote our revolving funds. It just creates them. There's nothing else that happens under it. It's what we have to do every year under Mass General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53 and a half. The second one is Article 10, Capital 90 funds. These are funds we receive from the state to finance that have to go to our roads. So again, that's just the acceptance of these funds from the state, and the money has to go to our roads. So Mr. Coulter, if that's acceptable to you, I'll move right on to Article 11.
Well done, Madam Moderator.
Thank you. Again, those both have also Article 9. Article 10 has favorable action by both unanimously by Board of Selectmen and Finance Committee. Moving on to Article 11, the expansion of the water distribution system in the high zone. And I believe that Mr. Koska is with us now. And Mr. Koska, just so you know, I did give a brief summary on your Article 4, which is basically, it's your ongoing budget, and you had a couple of expenses to paint the towers, and we just summarized that going on for Article 4. So now if you can address Article 11, which is the expansion of the water distribution system in high zone. And ladies and gentlemen, that has Board of Selectmen favorable 301, Finance Committee favorable 500. And I don't believe there's a vote from the Capital Planning.
Okay, we've been talking about this for about a year now. This is extending the high pressure zone from roughly Indian Pond Estates down Marion Drive, so that we can connect it to the, what's the name of that apartment development, Tom?
Tom, we can hear you.
Trammell Crow, Bob?
Yeah.
Yes, Trammell Crow.
That's good. And we've already done a number of the borings. We've got borings that were done by the sewer commissioners too. So we're winding up our research on what's going to have to be done there. But again, this is a project that we expect to be paid for by grants that we've received through the efforts of the Board of Selectmen and the Town Administrator.
Thank you, Mr. Koska. If you can just explain, you mentioned borings being done. If for those that are not educated in that area, which I'll throw myself in that hat, can you explain what the borings are, what you've done to?
Yeah, we drill borings to get a sense of what the soil content is. So we know whether we're going to run into ledge. We know whether it's very sandy soil or rocky soil, to get a sense of what the construction is going to be for running the water mains. We always do that and anticipate. First time we're doing a water main. If we're replacing a water main, we already know what's there. But this is a case where we don't know for sure what's underground. So we do borings. Borings are somewhere around 6-8 feet deep, to just get a sense of what the content of the soil is. It's routine. We have a pretty good idea what to expect. But again, if we're going to put the thing out to bid, we need to know for sure what we're looking at.
So with those borings, you've got an understanding of what your cost will be associated, or what you're expecting the cost to be in order to run that water line. Now, can you again just explain in regard to the 1.5 million? I'm going to play devil's advocate here. In the event that I know we've all talked about grant money coming in and the money that would be available, have we received that money? And if we haven't, if we don't, what would occur with this 1.5 million?
I'll defer to the town administrator on that one. He's been working on that.
Mr. Coulter?
Madam Moderator, the grant has been awarded. The contracts have been signed, but it's a grant that reimburses expenses. So as the Water Commission submits construction expenses, construction bills, they're paid immediately. But the contract has been signed. The money is available.
So would that grant money 100% cover this $1.5 million?
Yes.
So you're just saying that it's kind of like we have to appropriate these funds. And I was just looking very quickly because I thought that we had to, we're asking to vote to authorize to borrow. So do we have to borrow the funds, get the grant money, and then replace the funds? Is it kind of that wash?
I think either Ken or Elaine is on. I don't believe we have to borrow any money. It's a reimbursable grant. Elaine, am I right about that?
Yes, what it is you submit the invoices to Mass Works on a routine basis, typically monthly if you have any, and we do not expend any money. When they get the invoices, they review them, then they send the town the funds to then pay that invoice.
Okay. Again, just out of the question, because it's not quite clear in the article, in the motion, but more specifically, is that it does reference specific borrowing, and what you're indicating is there's not going to be borrowing, that these grant funds, it's just submission of the bills to the Mass Works, and then those bills are then paid by Mass Works, or does Mass Works pay us?
Mass Works provides us the funds, and then the project would be paid through those funds from Mass Works.
Okay.
From the town would pay it. We
Okay.
get a transfer from Mass Works, and then the invoices to the vendors are paid from the town's funding from Mass Works.
Okay. So
Madam Moderator?
yes, Mr. Coulter, one section is that there's no mention in here about the Mass Works grant. So I was just wondering, can that be specified, or Mr. Coulter?
Ask Jay, he put this, it's by Jay. So sure, I mean, we can, I think,
It does speak to federal and state aid.
yeah,
Jay drafted this article, and the FinCom did raise the issue of borrowing, where there's no borrowing. Why do we have it in the language? And Jay Talman directed us to keep the language in there. I don't know if it's got a statutory relationship or whatever it is, but that the language had to remain constant, and then we could explain that 100% of it is funded by a state grant of Mass Works.
And I would assume that if that question came up at town meeting, that Jay will be there to answer that question.
Yes, he's doing that meeting.
Okay.
And I am aware that usually that has to be included in there.
Okay.
It's one of the necessary, and it does say contract for and expend any federal or state aid available for the project. It is in the motion. So that instead of, it doesn't cite specifically the Mass Works. So that's what my only concern was, is whether that's going to have people a little anxious. But we can cover that. Okay. Anything further, Mr. Koska, Mr. Coulter, or Ms. Fury?
I'm good.
Nothing.
Okay. So again, ladies and gentlemen, Article 11 is a $1.5 million article. It doesn't mention borrowing. However, that's the indication that these funds are coming from the Mass Works. And my understanding from even last year's town meeting that the Mass Works funds have to be used for a water project.
this this grant, the most recent grant we got is for both water and wastewater. It's the
Right.
$3 million grant, so this one, it's basically, it's being split between both projects.
Right, because wasn't it a $3 million grant?
We've gotten
Two of
two.
them.
Grant in
Okay.
2018 was $3 million for, and we mentioned the water project in it as well. If the commissioners were ready to move forward. So that grant mentions both, but that $3 million is being used specifically for the wastewater project. The second $3 million grant is being split between both projects. In that application, again, mentioned the water project.
That's what I was just going to ask you. So the application for the second grant included this water project.
As did the first, yes.
Great. All right. Now moving on to Article 12, which is the Kingston Elementary School rooftop units. And that is under the school committee. And I believe, Mr. Coulter, you're going to address that?
Yes, I will, Madam
If I could start,
Moderator.
sorry, it's $737,414. That has Board of Selectmen favorable 400, Finance Committee favorable 500, and Capital Planning Committee favorable 400. Thank you, Mr. Coulter.
Thank you. The rooftop units atop the KES school are failing. This project started about a year ago. The total cost of the project is $937,414. Town meeting voted in the fall to allocate $200,000, which was a requirement to staying in the reimbursement grant program. So $200,000 has already been allocated. The balance of the project, therefore, is $737,414. The original construction price less what we've already allocated. MSBA, the Mass School Building Authority, has already improved reimbursement of up to $492,000. So in summary, of the $737,000, MSBA requires town meeting to allocate $492,628 will be reimbursed through
So
the
when-
MSBA program.
When you had indicated the allocation that was done at the special town meeting in the fall, the 200,000 some odd, you had said that was for reimbursement. Was that 200,000 some odd already reimbursed?
No, that was a prerequisite to them considering our application. It showed the town's commitment to the project. And so this town meeting, and that was done, this town meeting, the rest of the money for the total project, 937, it's already been put out to bid, needs to be allocated. And with those two town meeting actions, the town is now going to receive a $492,628 $1,000 reimbursement.
So is it fair to say in a summary that of the 937,200 voted in the fall, this 737,000, of that total sum, the town of Kingston will actually be paying the difference between the 937,000 and the 492,000?
That's why you're the moderator. Well done.
No, I just want to make sure that that's the
You're
actual-
correct.
Okay.
You are
So,
correct.
and I know that this isn't, I'm indicating, do we have to fund that money in order to get the reimbursement of the 492?
Yes, we do.
So that's why.
It's a reimbursement grant.
Okay. So expend it, then get it reimbursed, as opposed to
correct.
like the water grant. Okay. Okay, so that has that, and I know that that had favorable action with Finance Committee and Capital Planning Committee as well. Any further comments by anyone on this particular article?
Thanks for your help in clarifying that.
I just wanted to be clear. So on Article 12, so now going on to Article 13, transfer to employment liability reserve fund. Again, this is the transfer of the unused sick and vacation buybacks. Pretty much again, we do this annually. Well, we have been now more recently doing this annually. So Mr. Colt, if you want to address that, the sum that we're looking for in this article was 100,000, but I believe they're moving $90,512.73.
Yes, Madam Moderator, we're looking to increase the value of the fund to $100,000. Our workforce in Kingston many people are anticipating retirement, so we have a liability when they retire. There's approximately $8,000 or $9,000 in the account. So the $90,512.73 is the amount of money needed to transfer into the account to go into fiscal 21 with a $100,000 balance.
And then if we didn't vote this, would be still allocating 50 or just the shy of 40,000 going into to keep the balance of the account at the 50,000 that's previously voted?
If they don't vote it, that's correct.
So this is just increasing in order to meet the current times and needs
Current obligations, right.
of the employees. Okay. So if everybody understands the current, right now, the current employment liability reserve fund is $50,000. They're looking to increase that to $100,000. And to do that, it's going to cost an additional $90,512.73 into the account. Clearly, under the 50,000, it would be $40,512.73. And so that's the increase on that. Ladies and gentlemen, that has Board of Selectmen favorable vote 400 and Finance Committee favorable 500. Moving on to Article 14, we have the Elizabeth B. Sampson Fund appropriations that was voted by the Sampson Fund trustees. And this year, the Sampson Fund trustees was myself. I got to do it another year. As moderator, the chairman of the Board of Selectmen, Josh Warren, and Mr. Ken Stevens. So I'm just trying to see if Ken is on, which he's not. So I'm going to read these as I voted them. Ladies and gentlemen, the Sampson Fund is looking to allocate $26,870. This would be funds that the Elizabeth B. Sampson Fund has in interest, the expending of interest in each year. We also have some recalling of funds of $579.45 for funds that were allocated in prior fiscal years. One was 2007, one was 2008, one was 2019. Those funds added to the current interest sum totals $26,870. With those allocations, the trust fund has voted for the Board of Health, the well testing program. And I have to say, I was not the most one that was in favor of this. These are for private wells, but it will be used mostly to educate a lot of our private well holder citizens in the town of Kingston that are not don't have access to the town-wide water system, which is obviously always tested, always kept up by the water department, so that all of us citizens in the town of Kingston are confident in the water that comes out of our taps. There are those citizens that are on well in the town of Kingston. So we're allocating from the Elizabeth B. Sampson Fund $6,000 to help educate, and also to allow so many members to that sign up first to get the benefit of getting their wells tested. I believe it was ended up being $125 per well. And with that, some people will benefit, and then the test results will go to not only the citizen, but also to the town of Kingston's Board of Health Department. The next one is our Kingston Business Association for our Waterfront Festival, which is always wonderful. That's $2,000 to cover police and EMT. We have the Kingston Fire Department to do an announcement sign, and that's to help the sign that's out on Route 27. I know myself, I drive by it multiple times in a day. That's $1,370. As the chief of fire department indicated, they would love to get a digital one, like the benefit of what the library has, the gorgeous one across from the Adams Center. That's just not affordable, and especially not this particular year. So that's $1,370 for them to be able to upgrade, because there's been some impact in the signage itself after all these years. The Kingston Fire Department, our annual Christmas luminaries, $3,000. Kingston Police Department, National Night Out. On that night, it was announced that National Night Out will be in November. I believe they said November. I don't have my notes with me this year. And depending upon, obviously, depending upon the impact of the COVID-19 in the fall, they would go forward with that still, and that's $6,000. The Kingston Recreation Committee Department, they've now changed this to the Grays Community Entertainment instead of movie night, which we all knew it to be. So this will be for them, because now that we have the pavilion down at Grays Beach, they can offer more things like bands and other events that can occur down at Grays Beach. And so that award is for $5,000. And movie night is not going away, folks. It'll still be held. Kingston Board of Selectmen Memorial Day Parade, that's $3,500 for our annual Memorial Day Parade. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I have no vote on the Board of Selectmen on that, but we have Finance Committee favorable 410. And that's the Article 14 Elizabeth B. Sampson Fund. Moving on to Article 15, this is the Renewable Energy Enterprise Fund budget. And this is, again, the Board of Selectmen. I believe I understood Gloria is going to address this one. I mean, this is our revolving. So, Gloria, if you can just let us know, this is obviously the annual that we do.
Right, it's every year that this is voted, and this is for the projects that are on town property. So it's KWI, which is not spinning at this time, but there's the solar project that's being built, that's going to be built on the capped landfill also. So that will go through this fund here.
And so this fund allows us to take in the funds and then to pay the vendors and to do it. So it's a facilitator.
Right, yep, it's in and out.
And that's a $500,000 vote on that one, ladies and gentlemen, and that has favorable Board of Selectmen 301 and favorable Finance Committee 500. Moving on to Article 16, we have the Community Preservation Committee, CPC, Annual Administrative Budget. And with us tonight is Craig. I keep calling you Carl tonight. Craig Dalton. Craig Dalton, if you can address us on Article 16, please.
That's just the annual allotment of money that we have to make according to the statute of the CPA towards three basic funds that we have: the open space, historic preservation, and community housing. And it also allows us to fund the administrative expenses projected for the coming fiscal year out of the incoming funds that are coming. So this year, it's a minimum of 10% that goes to each of the three categories. And that's where the amounts come to this year: $30,825.55 each to open space, historic preservation, and community housing, for a total of $92,485.65. And then the administrative expenses are allowed to be up to 5% of the expected income in the coming year. And so these are broken down to $6,900 for personal services and $8,051.39 for administrative expenses, for a total of $14,951.39. Any money that's left over in the administrative account at the end of each fiscal year goes back into the unallocated fund. So each year we estimate what we can spend, take the maximum out, put it aside, and then whatever we don't use goes back into the unallocated fund. And that's
Thank you,
it.
Mr. Dalton. Again, ladies and gentlemen, no vote on the Board of Selectmen yet, but that has Finance Committee favorable 500. On that, this is again the annual, as we call it, putting the funds in the bucket, in the individual buckets that have to happen. So that's our annual article on the CPC. Moving on, thank you, Mr. Dalton.
I would like to say, Madam Moderator, that the two articles that we were favoring for projects have been set aside for the fall town meeting or the next town meeting that comes up, a special town meeting. Because we did have two projects we were recommending, but it was advised that we only handle the administrative accounts at this time.
And I just have to say, we're very appreciative of that due to these times and areas. And they will end up being on a fall agenda so that those can still get voted. So we appreciate the CPC's cooperation in that manner. Article 17 is the amendment to the zoning bylaw, section 6.6, and that's for the outdoor advertising. That is all set forth, ladies and gentlemen, in there. And it's, I believe that Mr. Silva is with us today in order to explain that. This one, ladies and gentlemen, requires a 2/3 majority vote, and that has Board of Selectmen favorable 500, Finance Committee favorable 500, and Planning Board favorable 400. So I believe I have on this one, outdoor advertising, Mr. Silva.
Yep. Hi, Janet.
Hi.
So this is a support article for one that was previously approved at town meeting, which allowed the town to entertain an agreement with a a digital sign company to put up these signs. And because these signs are unique and so large in nature, we need to change the bylaw in order for the signs to be allowed, basically, without a variance. And that's what this article does, is change the bylaw to allow these signs to be put up.
Now, can you just let us know, Jason, in regard to, I'm sorry, Mr. Silva, can you just let us know, obviously, these illuminated signs, I note in here that there is, the illumination is only permitted between 7 o'clock a.m. Until 11 o'clock p.m. Is that clear that none of these signs will be illuminated other than during those hours?
Yeah, absolutely. These bylaws right here would be the restrictions specifically applied to those signs. Yeah, absolutely.
And can you also tell us about whether or not those signs, where they're going to be located?
So the two locations, one sign on the Route 3 north-south corridor, and then one sign on the Route 44 west-east. The Route 3 sign would be located, probably the best description is between the dump and maybe the I think it's the Toyota dealership, kind of by the transfer station in that general area. And then the other sign on the 44 location would be probably the closest proximate place would be the TL Edwards asphalt plant. There's a piece of property that Kingston owns adjacent to 44 in that area. So both locations are extremely far away from residences.
Okay, that's what I was trying to get at. So that's great. So both of those are away from residents. They wouldn't be allowed near residents, and both of them are on major thoroughfares in order for that signage to have its most impact.
Yeah, I highly doubt that any residents would be able to see those signs during any operating hours. And if there would, there'd be maybe one or two through a winter, time frame when there's no leaves on the trees.
All right, thank you, Mr. Silva. Directing to Ms. Fiore.
Yeah, I just want to mention the bylaw is specific to those two locations. The bylaw mentions within 500 feet of Route 3 and Route 44. So these are specific to those locations. It doesn't open up the whole town to this type of signage.
But I just also wanted to be clear, because some of Route 3 is actually close to housing. There were residences that were keeping it more towards the commercial zones.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's what it says, commercial industrial park, so.
All right, and again, ladies and gentlemen, that requires a 2/3 majority vote, and that has favorable action by Board of Selectmen, Finance Committee, and the Planning Board.
Janet, one last point.
Yes, Mr. Coulter.
The revenue on those is about $192,000 a year to the town for 20 years. So about $3.8 million over the 20-year period.
Thank you, Mr. Coulter. That was very good to let us know that final point on that. Very important to the town, especially during these times and ages where, we're making such significant cuts, more revenues. When we were talking earlier about local revenues and other revenues going down so significantly this year. Moving on to Article 18, amendment to the zoning bylaws, Section 3.2B and 6.2B, floodplain overlay district. Again, now I have Mr. Downey. You've been on with me since the very beginning.
Yes, I have. Can you hear me well?
You're the first two to come on. So, explain Article 18 to us. I'm sorry. Let me just jump in one quick time. Again, ladies and gentlemen, that requires a 2/3 majority vote, as these are amendments to bylaw. And this had Board of Selectmen favorable 4-0-0. And Mr. Downey, I think you can advise us. Has the Planning Board voted this one yet?
Not yet. They will be voting on June 8th, next Monday.
Great.
And the purpose of this article is to update our floodplain overlay district bylaws to match the new FEMA maps that go into effect on July 22nd, 2020. FEMA updates their maps every 5 years, and when they do, they may renumber or change the suffix for the map panels. This year, all of our panels, with the exception of one, has been assigned different suffixes. The numbers all remain the same, and in order for Kingston to remain in the National Flood Insurance Program, we need to update our zoning bylaws to accurately reflect the revised floodplain maps and their accompanying panel designations.
Thank you, Mr. Downey. I understand just from dealing with the Mass Moderators Association and talking to as many moderators who are planning their town meetings that have been going off. It is ironic that this is the article that's staying on most of them, even towns that are only doing 5 and less, and towns that are doing 10 and less articles. So the importance of this article because of the FEMA designation and it becoming effective as of July, and that's needing to be voted. So again, ladies and gentlemen, 2/3 majority vote on that. And that has favorable action from the Board of Selectmen, and we'll hear from the Planning Board on what their choices are on this. I know that you worked really hard on this particular article. So thank you, Mr. Downey. Nothing further from anyone? Moving on from that one to Article 19, street acceptance. Again, this is the streetways acceptance, and this is as public ways, Marion Drive, Galleon Road, to be added as public ways. So this has Board of Selectmen favorable 4-0-0, and I believe Mr. Silver is going to address this one.
Yep, the planning board will be voting on this one on Monday as well. I'm pretty sure it's on the agenda. This is a pretty straightforward scenario. The road was taken by the MBTA or that organization when they did the train station. They were always intended to return the road back to Kingston. There was some time frame where there was some money negotiated over some road improvements in order to meet Kingston standards. We finally negotiated that down, agreed upon, I think, an amount of $250,000, and I think Tom can confirm that. Paul Basler has also confirmed that's an acceptable amount. In addition to that, there will be some need for the road itself to be used for the sewer improvements. So not only will we receive the money to make some road improvements, we'll also save money from purchasing the rights to have to require easements. So it's really a no-brainer for us to take the road over, take the 250, allow the sewer improvements to be made, and then use that 250 to fix those areas from the sewer improvements.
Thank you, Mr. Silva. That was actually very succinct and very comprehensive. If I can ask, and I don't know if this is to you or Mr. Coulter, that $250,000 that's been accepted, and I know Mr. Basler has estimated that in regard to the repairs that would need to go into, that money is being paid by whom? When is it being paid, and is it guaranteed? Has it been locked in so that we don't end up with these streets? You know, that's going to be a question on the floor. Is it locked in so that we don't get these streets and then not have the $250,000?
Yes, it will be. Madam Moderator, we're executing a document prepared by Jay Talaman in collaboration with the MBTA called an intergovernmental agreement. And at the time we take the roads, we get a check for $250,000 to bring the roads up to our standards. In addition to that, both the water department and the wastewater department will require easements to dig in those roads. Those easements would have each cost $250,000. So we're saving $500,000 and getting the $250,000 to bring our new roads up to speed.
And then just one other question, Mr. Coulter, if I may. That $250,000 with the MBTA, as we've heard with state cuts, all the cuts that are going on, is there any chance that that $250,000 is going to be cut where we won't get the money?
Well, they're an independent authority. They're not part of the state budget, but I can't speak to, their agency, but our intergovernmental agreement will be clear that it'll be happening at closing. One thing I will say, there's been a lot of speculation, online speculation, about the $250,000 easement. So we've included in our supplemental package for the town meeting package, the written documentation from MBTA with their assessments of $250,000 per easement.
Okay. And then lastly on that particular topic is will those contracts be signed before town meeting, or as I think you've indicated, they'll be signed simultaneous with the closing?
They'll be signed once there's a positive town meeting vote. If there's not a town meeting vote, there'll be no agreement. We'll have to pay for the easements.
All right.
It's all subject to an affirmative town meeting vote.
And because we do note, and some of what will be said is that that's not indicated in here, that the Board of Selectmen will require that $250,000 intergovernmental signing contract be signed prior to the closing. So what's the guarantee that, obviously that transaction will occur?
Oh, I think it's pretty certain the MBTA wants the town to take these roads. The town wants to take these roads, and we want to save this $500,000. So both parties are ready, able, and willing, but it's all subject to a town meeting vote. If town meeting doesn't support it, this transaction doesn't happen.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Coulter. I appreciate that. Again, ladies and gentlemen, that is only a majority vote for the acceptance of a street, and that's Board of Selectmen favorable 400. Moving on to Article 20, and I believe we're going to make our 7 o'clock window. That's a granting of an easement, and that's on Nix Rock Road. And so I have that, and I believe, Mr. Coulter, you're going to address that in regard to accepting or grant of an easement with Nix Rock Road.
Thank you. I'll do so briefly. This project is not new to the town of Kingston. We rezoned the property 3 or 4 years ago to accommodate this project. There is approximately 100 acres of land owned by the Sisters of Divine Providence, and a major developer in Plymouth wishes to build the first in the country eco-friendly commercial park, a 1 million square foot commercial park. They would in fact become the largest commercial taxpayer in the town of Kingston. In order to access that site, there's a piece of property owned by Kingston that they need an easement to get access to the site. So this article is about granting an easement to the developer to gain access to the site. They will then move forward to deal with water and storage issues, which would have to come through Plymouth or have to come from Plymouth. We can't provide water and storage to that part of town. In addition, the traffic would be to the facility and out of the facility through Colony Place in Plymouth, not through Kingston. With this easement, the project will continue. The objection in the last town meeting was against the possibility of the developer exercising his option with the sisters to purchase it and then flipping it for residential development. So we have added to this easement a deed restriction that prohibits residential development. I think that covers it.
I think it does too. If I could just ask, I know that we had talked about this at the last town meeting in regard to development right off of Old Colony. That was going to be more of a business development. Will that development or that section, is this going to now usurp that and this one, and we won't have that other business development that will be adjacent to Old Colony Place or Colony Place?
You mean another Kingston project?
Right, the one that we had at the annual town meeting last year.
Same project.
Okay.
It is the exact same project, 1 million square foot eco-friendly commercial industrial park.
Okay, great. So this isn't a new, this is just clarifying what was done before, and that the easement will be specific and delineated to exclude any residential use.
We're bringing it back to this town meeting because it narrowly failed last time because the presenter did a poor job of presenting it, and I can say that because it was me. So we're taking another shot at it.
Well, I just want to see, I was reading quickly and I'll have to reread it. Does it say that that the restriction of the easement to commercial and non-residential use is that in the article? I didn't, for some reason, I didn't read this one.
Yes, it is.
It is in there. Okay, great. So
Yes.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, that requires, because again, that's a granting of an easement. That requires 2/3 of majority vote by the board, by the meeting. And that has Board of Selectmen favorable 400 and has Finance Committee favorable 500. Ladies and gentlemen, it's 6:56, and I know that PAC TV has the, forget what meeting, Conservation, I think that's coming up at 7 o'clock that they're going to be televising. So I just want to advise everybody, go to the website. The town report that is called to report, it indicated is online, so you can read that in advance. The books will be available. They're available at Town Hall, but they're all, which isn't open yet to the public, but they'll be available at the town meeting like they always are, so we can have our town report. And then lastly, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to be putting up on the website as well key factors that I'm working with the chief of the fire department, our COVID-19 specialist, in regard to safety and protocols that we'll be using and having at town meeting. I want to let everybody know the building will be disinfected. It'll be disinfected prior to PAC TV setting up in the the town clerk. Then it will also be again disinfected so that when people are arriving the day of town meeting, it will have been a clean and disinfected building. Masks will be required for people to enter. Unfortunately, I am not permitted to deny somebody entrance without a mask. However, they will go into the gymnasium. They will be segregated. We will not allow that conscientious objector to subject themselves to the rest of the town meeting body. Anyone with a medical condition that requires that you might come in with a mask, but you cannot maintain a mask on throughout the entire meeting as a result of people with COPD, that we would ask that you also, as you're being checked in, so that you can go to a special section as well, so that you and people around you can be safe as well. The meeting will be segregated with 6-foot distancing, and I thank Gloria and Julie from PAC TV for going down there and sitting in all the seats to make sure that they were segregated. We'll be dealing with that. There are a little bit of some issues that will arise in the sense that if anybody in a row has to get up to speak, everybody in the row has to step out to allow anybody to speak. So there'll be some of that goes on. And unfortunately, that's just what we have to do. It's an auditorium style seating. But we are told, and as I indicated at the beginning of the meeting, PAC TV has wonderfully put up, they're using boom mics now. So the mics will be coming down from the ceiling. They are much more receptive to picking up voices and everything. And so a speaker does not have to be close to them. So that also is going to protect our speakers from COVID-19 distribute, what am I trying to say, infection. The other thing is that you will still need to wear your mask because obviously the expelling of your voice is going to have that. So you will need to wear your mask. If anybody wants to speak and they don't have a medical mask, they will be available because the medical masks are picked up better on the boom mics than more than a 3-layer regular mask on that. So I thank everyone. I hope everyone will still come out to the annual town meeting on June 13th. 9:00 a.m. at the Kingston Intermediate School. I ask people to arrive early. We're going to need to 6-foot distance and check in. It's going to take some time. So I ask everybody to arrive early, and then our exit is also going to have to be done by rows. The Kingston Police Department is assisting us with that in regard to dismissing row by row so that we don't have any congregation and we could do it efficiently, again, to ensure the safety of all the public and all of our employees at the town of Kingston. So I thank everyone who's participated. Mr. Coulter, I think you want to close at 6:59.
Very quickly, Janice, next Wednesday at 1 o'clock, we're going to do another forum with just a detailed overview of the budget and a detailed overview of the safety plan for the town meeting.
Okay, great.
Wednesday
And
at
that
1
will
o'clock.
be posted on the website. So
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Coulter. Thank you, everybody, for participating in this annual
Great
preview.
job, Janet.
And I thank you and see you all at town meeting. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Went very well.